Recently I watched a documentary called History of the World in 2 hours. It was an enjoyable watch. In this history, humans start out as bipedal apes. As time goes on, their brains get bigger, they start learning to use tools, and then they develop language. That latter development is presented as a turning point, a point where humanity becomes more defined as something distinct from bipedal apes because now they have the power to communicate across generations. From there, they become more advanced, entering a stage of cultural evolution that advances far more rapidly than the slow and painful biological evolution that they had relied upon up to that point. They learn to farm their own food and domesticate animals, which leads to the development of settlements, our first cities. When the documentary talks about the development of language, we see a charismatic caveman standing on a large mound of rocks talking to a group of other cavemen that surround him and listen. When we get to the development of cities, we see traders and merchants crowded into the streets of an ancient Sumerian city, trading their grown and manufactured goods with each other, while a giant temple looms in the background, casting a shadow over that great human invention, that city, created from the development of farming, manufacturing, and trading. The narrative gives no explanation for why it is there, despite the fact that the city seems to have been built around it, gravitating to it. The documentary then goes on to talk about the development of writing and the domestication of more animals, as well as the creation of empires before covering the founding of the major world religions that exist today. But there's no attempt to explain why a species of smart bipedal apes would have any religion, much less why they would be the only ones. Religion does not seem to exist within any other group of social animals. Not only is it unique to human apes, but, as those big old Sumerian temples prove, was with humanity since the beginning of civilization, and probably even before that. Presenting cultural development as a series of solutions to the obstacles that nature throws against us, the documentary simply does not know how to fit religion and spirituality into the history of humanity, so it ignores the temples while giving a respectful nod to the world religions of today. So why did the narrative have so much trouble with this odd puzzle piece that did not seem to fit anywhere into the fabric of its story? Is the premise flawed? Are certain cultural developments simply wasteful and useless to our survival? Even if that is true, the existence of religion still needs to be explained in a documentary about the history of the world with a special emphasis on humanity's biological and cultural evolution. The reason why the documentary couldn't do this was because it made a big mistake earlier in its narrative when it covered the invention of language, praising it as a valuable tool to issue commands and learn through teaching rather than simply learning from immediate experience. But do animals need language for that? We know that animals, especially mammals, will groom their young for adulthood, teaching them how to hunt and gather food, and that social animals have hierarchies, all maintained without any verbal communication. Even ants can farm their own food, and ants are very stupid creatures. However, there is one thing that humans can do that no other animal can do, all because we have language. We can ask questions. If you have the ability to ask a question, you also have the ability to understand that a question is being asked. An animal that can ask questions is an animal that can provide answers, real or made up. Does a wolf living in the wild ever ask itself, who are we? Why are we here? Is there life after death? Who is behind all this? They have no way of telling us, so how could we ever know? Thus, ideas can spread throughout our society in a way that they cannot do in any other group of social animals. This is why no ant or wolf has ever landed on the moon, and it is why no ant farm or pack of wolves have ever built a temple to honor and make peace with the invisible forces of nature that are responsible for both their fortunes and miseries. They have no way to communicate such ideas,